Time you see stuff being worked on the car, it's already done and I moved on to something else. All I'm trying to, this is basically a tutorial, but because I'm trying to prevent it to go farther than one part, and I end up sometimes rolling into two parts. Because to do one of these completely, I may end up having three or four parts. But there's just sometimes there's something on the car that I have to stop and go over with you, and this is one of them. So, and it is this V8 engine. Now you see this is the different kind versus the Spectra had. This thing here is actually the older style type engine that would be common in the US cars from 19 during actually all the way back as far as the 50s for some of these engines. And it's a system that it's running on a system that's not used anymore, but the car represents a classic car out of 69 or 70. So we have ourselves the points condenser electrical system here, or ignition system. And this cap, when I was telling before in the other tutorials, uses clips to hold this back. Then you have the cover and the cap. And then you have the rotor system. And when you look it to the left, that's a very good job build of the rotor system because that's pretty much what they look like. And then we have this part here, the distributor that we need to take out. And as you can see, it's a point system. Now this car is a 12 volt vehicle, that much I do know. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Now those of you that know here what's going on and what this engine, exactly which one this engine actually represents, no, there is no external coil anywhere on this engine whatsoever. So don't get nitpicky with the, wait a minute, that's not right. I understand that, but there's no reason, I'm glad that they even did this because they could have turned their back on it. That's why I get upset when people try to nitpick the little things because, this takes a lot of work. I mean, look at their research. This isn't even made in America. But look how well they did their research. Somebody up there either did it really well or somebody admires these cars. Because we all know what this is. This is 3-deuce system. So we all know what that is. So it's not like they went into this blind. So that's why I don't see the reason for all the nitpicking and the inaccuracy and stuff. If they didn't really care, they wouldn't have made this game at all. They would have found something else to make. Maybe another truck simulator game or something. But they wouldn't have this. So, this is the rock around cover. Now on these older style type engines, the one thing that you'll notice is that you're going to have these. What these cars use is they use hydraulic lifters that are located on the inside of the block. Now they don't have it on this model engine, but nevertheless, though, I can see the push rod here is bad. So what happens is that the lifter on the inside, when the cam turns, there's a lobe on the cam that'll push the push rod, which will then turn, come up, and hit this rocker arm. Now, this rocker arm's on a pivot, so this will actually go downward, and it pushes this valve. And that's exactly how this system works. So when you're taking this apart, there are 2 of these for each of these cylinders. There are 4 cylinders obviously on each side. So this is going to be 16 rocker arms and 16 push rods that you have to contend with. Yeah, you can definitely see that's bad. When those parts are black like that, that is definitely a cue that you do. Okay, now this is what is known, because remember there are people here that probably do not know what this is. This is called the 4-barrel carburetor. This is actually a representation of a double pumper style type racing carburetor, because I know what this is representing. And the way this system works, there's no injections in here. There's no manifold injection in here. The vacuum from the cylinder alone will suck air through through these ventures. And that suction, there are small little jets, and there's also small idler lines and stuff that are also in here in each one of these sections. When that vacuum comes through, it'll end up sucking the gas out through there, which sprays into the manifold, mixes with the air as it goes out to each of the sections of the engine. That's what a carburetor does. That's the difference between that and an injection system. Now, in an injection system, you got two types. One of them is manifold injection. What it'll do is that the gas will be sprayed at the ports within inside of the manifold. Like the Vortex engine is good for this. But people claim the engine after a while is junk, but when you first get it, they're running strong. I think it's the lack of the inability to understand what the parts are inside there that make that injection system works. Because you have the injector, you have the spider lines, and you have the practically famous line that everybody seems to miss, and that is the line that comes in from the outside of the manifold, because it's a tube nut that fits there, and then it uses a pressed-on plastic style type line that's fitted so it can't be removed, at least normally, that goes to the injection system and has a runoff line that comes back. And what will happen is they will rub, and one of them will eventually split, whether it's the return line or delivery. So now the gasoline is pouring inside the manifold, and it ends up getting into the cylinders, following out the plugs, and everybody's chasing everything else down because the engine's running like the timing is bad. It's running, it's misfiring, but that's because everything is getting flooded out because of what happens. There's an inspection plate on top of those, mainly on the V6 models. Opening them up, using a set of safety glasses, and then using a light to shine down it, you can ask a buddy to turn on the ignition so that the fuel pump can go active, and gasoline will spray in there. And if you see gasoline spraying, well, that's the problem. That tube line thing has to be replaced. And then somebody will go in there and rush that job, and then now the metal fittings that go in the manifold to the outside won't sit right. Now they get it done, and it's still having an issue because now it's sucking a lot of air. Now, a long while ago, actually a long time ago, I had to go do one of those. And I had to do it because the mechanic that worked on it supposedly fixed it. But when I saw the car, it still had the same problem. It didn't change. It's just that, you know, it was like he did it for nothing. And so I went up there and I looked into it, and that's what I came across. So I changed out the parts, and it was done. I had to get the nut kit and everything. The car worked like gold. The engine worked like a charm. It worked like it did when it first left the factory. So I always did have a small reputational name for when I fix somebody's vehicle. I fix it like it left the factory. I try to do that and keep that going when I was able to. So, but anyways, simple stuff that you miss. And we're taking a look here. See that? Got two bad pistons. But it doesn't matter, they're all getting replaced brand new. So, even though now if it was a customer's car, that would be different. But it's not a customer's car. Two bad ones here. So 4 bad pistons. It'll all be replaced with new parts. On here, this on the older cars they would use a fan system, which you see here, just like this. And then later they started to switch to an object they called a clutch fan. And what this fan did is that it made it easier on the pump system, because like if you were going at certain speeds, the fan would be turning, and if you went at other speeds, the fan would slow down, making it making it easier for the fuel pump to, or I'm sorry, the on the water pump and the engine and everything for the load reasons. That's what it was used for. Because when you're moving, air is blowing through this radiator, so really it's keeping the engine cool. It's when you're stopped, then there's no air blowing. That fan is important then because that's what's bringing the air through. So that's why they went from that uh, straight fan connection to the pump and started going with the clutch fan, because the clutch fan would actually slow down or break off from having to run that way. So, but when you were at a stop, it would be turning full, and then when the temperature spring activated, whatever's inside there gets tight, and then next thing you know, you could hear the fan louder because it's going along with the idle. That's when and you can always tell when the clutch fan engages, because that's when the vehicle or trucks are good for that. They drive away, and next thing you know, you hear woo, and it stays like that for a while, and then it stops, and it's like, what is that noise? The clutch fan engaged to cool the engine down, to drag more air through. And on vehicles that when clutch fans go bad, they do two things. They rattle. They don't stay with the turn of the engine, especially in neutral where it's needed the most. Or they seize up. So here you're driving and that's all you hear is that clutch fan. And that ain't no good either, because you'll beat up the water pump for sure. So these are things that are dealing with it. But in this car here, it doesn't use a clutch fan, so you don't have to worry about it. It's a complete stationary fan system this thing uses. The starter on these vehicles that are here, you can be able to get them from here, like you should be able to. Okay, someone get the air hose, somebody get a hold of the sandblaster. Let's get some hammering done here.